Hello and welcome to another episode of Are You For Real? This is the podcast that's set to empower women and gender nonconforming beings in business. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that this podcast has been recorded and edited on stolen land, and that sovereignty was never ceded. I was lucky to record on Wurundjeri land and want to recognize the traditional owners of it, paying my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. I first came across my next guest on TikTok, and I was immediately captivated by her ability to articulate great advice in an authentic way. Influencer, model, designer, and chef, she's a woman of many talents. She is the owner and founder of Sabi the Label, a sustainable clothing and jewelry brand, and also the owner and chef behind Naked Hungry, a Narm-based cooking and catering business that heroes delicious local produce with optional clothing. Please welcome the lovely Mon Barton.
Welcome, Mon,
Hi.
to Are You For Real? Thanks so much for joining me today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pronouns are she, her. My name is Meg. Would you mind introducing your pronouns?
Yes, I am Mon and she, her.
Beautiful. I've been so excited to meet you because I feel like you have such a warmth and transparency to you. Like, not only via email when we were communicating about this, you're so sweet, but namely via social media. Has being transparent and authentic always been like a core value for you as a content creator?
100%.
Yeah.
It's funny because my relationship and journey with social media and like becoming an influencer happened by accident. I guess it wasn't something that I was like striving to do. But I know, I used to say I think, but like I know that I have built an online community through just being myself and being transparent, and I think people resonating with that and being like, I like that energy.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Like, your content is always really relatable, which I love. Like the way that you talk about dating and like body image and stuff. I think it's really refreshing to see.
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame, like, we often put influencers on this pedestal and blame them for comparative culture, but we completely dismiss their own experience of that on the platform. So I'm curious what your relationship has been like with social.
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting conversation that doesn't happen enough. I think the responsibility that's put on influencers, I think there's two sides to it. For me, how I look at my impact online is, if I am going to be sharing, knowing that I have influence and impact, what I share needs to be honest. But there's also another side of like, there's so much pressure for these like public figures to be like appeasing to the masses, and like it's like, oh, she said that and didn't mean that, and it's like there's no accountability for the consumer of being like, well, I have to take agency and like accountability for like how I consume content, and then my actions following that. Sorry, what was your original question?
Oh, like, just curious, your relationship with social media, like from the onset of getting it yourself and then even like using that as a business tool as well. Like, yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, I saw this really interesting, not a meme, but like, what do you call those tiles? There's just words on it. I don't know. A quote.
Yeah, a quote.
And it said something along the lines of like, people will feel really uncomfortable when they see you winning and they don't know how to celebrate you when you win. And my relationship with social media, and as it has grown, what I love about my experience is that it's almost all of the time positive. But yeah, the experience when you become a person of influence on a platform, people will just find any reason to try and take away this power because of either their own insecurities or projections or whatever. But also, like, people just hate to see people trying, which is a huge thing. And I think in Australia as well, we have a lot of like tall poppy syndrome. And so that has been really interesting to experience. But I have had so many moments of being like, you know what, fuck this. Like, I actually just don't want to do this anymore. I think the older that I've gotten and the more comfortable and at ease I have become with myself, the more my relationship with social media has been like, I don't really like care. As in, not that I don't care about the duty of care I have for my community, but it's like, I don't really care. I'm not overthinking what I'm posting. I'm just posting. If someone doesn't like it, people unfollow me, I don't care. I'm not here for the like trying to build and grow it anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not so caught up on that feeling of like online validation.
Yeah.
Which can so easily happen and does happen when you start growing. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, you know, you get all these beautiful compliments and DMs and people following you and you get amazing opportunity. But yeah, even just like I will get stopped in the street or at parties or at a restaurant by a lot of women who I love it. So I'll be like on a date or I'll be with a friend and people come be like, are you Mons Monday? And I'm
Oh
like,
my
and
God.
my friends or on date or whatever will always be like, is that weird? I'm like, honestly, it used to be.
Yeah.
But now I think the courage that people have to come up and approach me and be like, hey, I really, really love what you share. I really resonate with it. And like, you've had a positive impact on me. And I'm like, that's fucking amazing. Like,
That's so beautiful.
if that's
yeah.
what I'm bringing to the community, especially women, I'm like, sweet, I've done my job.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And like, I'm curious what balance looks like as an influencer as well. Like, do you use those app limits and stuff like I do? And every day I'm just like, ignore. Like, surely that's like quite a bit for you having to create content all the time. Like, what does that look like for you?
This is a great question and something that has been such a theme in conversation at the moment with friends and family. Even like, so recently I went on a date and at the end of the date, he was like, you like didn't touch your phone at all. I'm like, okay, wait, I'm confused. Like, what is this conversation we're having? He's like, oh no, I just like, you know, I thought like you're an influencer and like, I was just like expecting you to be on a phone. Like there's no judgment. And I'm like, oh nah. And then it opened up this really epic conversation of like, for me, I don't know how other influencers experience it, but like, think about a chef, right? Chef goes to work and cooks all day. When they go home, every chef that I know, when they go home, they're not cooking. They're not cooking at all. They're ordering like Maccas. They're making toast, like
the bare
low
minimum.
effort, you know? So for me, not only like running my own businesses and then also, you know, my personal brand on Instagram, any chance that I cannot be on my phone, I won't be, you know? And it's an interesting relationship because now when I look at my time online, I have to be really intentional and be like, okay, what am I going on here for? Is it business? Like, I need to post this and I want to post this? Or have I had like a download or a thought and been like, oh, okay, I want to share it. So it's like knowing my reason for being on social media, and don't get me wrong, I get stuck scrolling, but I have way more awareness around when I'm doing it because I get fatigued easier because it's like I'm already on there all the time. So it's like, it's kind of this thing where I'm like, I've been cooking all day, I don't want to cook tonight, you know?
She's off duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That makes a lot of sense that you kind of like set an intention. I think that's a good practice for kind of anyone with social media. It's like, what am I hoping to get out of this? Like, what are the time boundaries? Like, what does that look like? And I'm curious as well, I guess you'd use it for a business tool so much. Like, how do you find inspiration for your business and like on social media?
Well, this has been an interesting experience because so now we have TikTok, right? And for so long, I had this fucking block on TikTok. I was just like, I hate it. I don't like it. I don't understand it. I don't know what they want. Like, And then, you know, I was like, this is a really, really great business tool. I just need to fucking do it. I need to do the thing that I don't want to do. And the more that I have gone into that space and understanding how people receive content now, it's like actually just being yourself and being as real as possible without like, I guess, allowing people like into your life at all times, which is another kind of area that scares me a little bit. But how do I find inspiration? Honestly, it's just like I just be myself as much as possible. Try and get out of my head and like not overthink what I'm sharing when I'm sharing it, and just being like, I guess the way that I look at social media and how I present, it's like I want to be the person that I have never been able to find on Instagram.
That's so beautiful.
You know? And it's like, and it's been like that for most of my life in other areas, not just Instagram. You know, it's like, how do I become the person that I always needed as support? Or how do I be the friend that I never got to experience? Or, you know, even growing up, like never really seeing like a mixed race brown person in media or in beauty standards, all that kind of stuff. So I think my inspiration is just continuously using social media as like a reflection of my own personal journey, because it just keeps going. Like you're never at this like point where it just like stops and you're like, yep, I'm me, sweet. It just is an ongoing journey. So I'm like, using social media, using my own personal growth to then translate in social media, I think.
I feel like that's probably why a lot of people feel like you in particular, that they can come up to you and talk to you, is because you have that realness to you. It's like we're kind of along with for the ride with you, you know, which I love. Like I'm loving it. All the little moments and stuff, and like your like ability to laugh at yourself and keep it real is really cool. Yeah. And I guess I want to talk more about your business. So Savvy the label.
Yes.
How did it come to be?
Oh, okay. Great question. So Sabi was born out of this era in my life where for the first time since I was 13, like I got my first ever job illegally, 13, scrubbing dishes, like elbow deep in this sink. I was like this tiny little kid just being like, I just want to make money. Up until, how old was I? Maybe 25, 26. I got made redundant from my job, and that was the first time I'd ever been like let go of a job, and that was also like a pretty big experience in rejection for me in the work scene. Anyway, so from that point I was kind of like, holy shit, like this is the first time I've not worked in years, like over 10 years, and I was like, okay, I need to just slow down and figure out what my next step is, instead of just like going and getting a job to make money. And so I decided to move to Bali for a little bit. I was just like, I'm just going to go over there, like see what I want to do. And I actually went to Bali with the intention of starting Naked Hungry, which I will get into. I'm sure we'll get into. And I went over there with a few, jewelry pieces that my mum used to wear in the 90s, and like she is like an icon in my world. I love her. Shout out to my mum. And I really connected with these jewelry pieces because she would wear them as I was a little kid, and they just have a lot of sentimental value. And I remember being like, oh, I'm gonna like, I'll go to Bali, do my Naked Hungry thing, and like I'll get a jeweler to like remake these pieces for me.
Just for like your personal collection.
Just like I was like, Mum, I'm taking these, whatever.
Yeah.
And then anyway, went to Bali, did the whole Bali thing, great, cool. And then I went and saw a healer, like an energetic healer. And I was like, you know, I have never really been into that side of spirituality because I was like a bit skeptical, but I was like, oh, whatever. What have I got to lose? And I was like feeling a bit lost, you know, like my identity, my whole life has been this like hustle, like I can do anything, I can work any job, not necessarily healthily. I come from a lot of struggle and scarcity in my own family unit, and so like this hustle mentality has been a theme. Anyway, so I go to this healer, and she's straight away, she's like, food, wow. She's like, that's such a common theme in your life, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, she gets it, like love this. And then all of a sudden she just stops, and she's like holding this crystal ball. And she's a Indonesian woman, and she's holding this crystal ball, and then she looks at me and she was like, okay, you need to do jewelry and you need to do it now. And I was like, okay, this woman does not know what she's talking about. Like she had it and she's lost it. And then anyway, she's telling me all about this whole download that she got. And then she was like, you need to do it. It's going to be really successful. You're going to find a lot of purpose in it. And then that is going to really help fuel your food and what you want to do. And I was like, I don't know. Yeah. So I left that session, sat on it for a day. And then I just had this moment where I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna see what she's talking about. And I just got on my bike and I rode around Seminyak and had a few friends in Bali that were like, go there, like see if you can find a jeweler. And then it just started. Like I was just like, well, I'm fucking doing it.
That is not the story that I expected, but I'm so grateful for that. I love that. That is so cool.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
So you kind of had it all along, but then it was just like, that was the nudge, you know?
Yeah. I guess, so I worked obviously in social media. doing a lot of influencing for brands, I got to the point where I was like, hang on, I'm good at this. I'm helping other brands be really successful. Why don't I do this for myself? And it just all happened so perfectly at the same time, where I was having these thoughts. I was like, I'll do it with Naked Hungry. It's what I want to do. And then this woman being like, no, you need to do jewelry. And then I was like, fuck, okay. And it all just happened. And then I remember after I got the first samples back, I was like, okay, these are amazing. And then I don't know what it was. It was so intuitive. I just I was almost like, no one's going to do this for me unless I just start. And I just need to like almost pretend that I'm doing this. But I was actually doing it, if that makes sense. Like, I just,
the manifestation process, right? Of like putting yourself in that, like that you're actually doing the thing.
Yes.
That you have what you want.
Yeah, exactly. And then I just started an Instagram page and I started posting. And then I was like, I guess if I start posting on this new account, it's making me accountable to just keep going. Yeah. And then I just one foot in front of the other. And then, it eventuated. And then I know once that happened and I launched the brand, I was all of a sudden like, I can do anything. I can do anything. Like,
that's so nice.
It gave me this empowerment and this confidence to be like, if I have just gone from like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing in my life, to like launching a business and a brand, which I have no education in design, no education in business, like nothing. If I can do that, then I can literally do anything.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know that sounds so typical, but it's like, like once you do it, you're like, you can do anything, you just have to do it.
Yeah, take that first step. Do you find that like things still make you nervous along the way, or like you pretty confident backing yourself a lot? Like what kind of makes you scared in business?
Oh yeah, there's all the time. But it's like every part of every day has risk attached to it, but it's like, it's whether you let that risk and the fear stop you from experiencing what could be on the other side if you don't let that stop you. And I guess like completely trusting yourself. Like, I hate saying like trust the process, but like it is as simple as that. It's like there is no success or failure. Like, I believe there is no success and there is no failure, because this success that we think we're getting to, it might be like, okay, I'm going to launch this collection, and if it sells out in a month, that's a success. But that is not what makes my experience successful. It's like every single moment and everything that I did to even just launch a collection is the success.
That's the process.
You know?
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And then there is no failure. Like, let's say I launch a collection and it doesn't go well. It's like, okay, that didn't fail. It's just not what I was expecting. What did I learn?
Yeah. I think that's such a good way of looking at it. And it really helps you stay present as well, I think, because it's like, you know, think about like even a marathon, for example. You're training, so much pressure on one day or like one launch of one collection. And it's like every single day that you got up, you trained, or every single day that you got up, you sat on your laptop, and like all those little things are such big wins. And I think we often get, you know, sidetracked by that end goal. So I think that's a really beautiful lesson in just like being present and celebrating the everyday as well. Yeah. So then what about Naked Hungry? How did this then kind of...
Okay. So Naked Hungry, this is... so in lockdown, just kind of coming out of lockdown, I left Melbourne, moved back down the coast where I grew up, and was living with a new friend that I'd made, and we were both very the feminine energy was just beautiful. We became like very close, like sisterhood, and we were just like naked a lot, and it was just like so nice to just be yourself. And I was cooking a lot, and this was also like just before I went to Bali, so I had space and time in my life, so I was cooking a lot, and like kind of as like a joke, we were like, oh, I should start like an Instagram page or something. And anyway, I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. 'Cause, she would take like really beautiful photos of me when I'd just be like in the kitchen naked cooking. And then it became like a bit artsy, a bit like cool, a bit Instagrammable. So I was like, fuck it, let's make an Instagram page. And it blew up. Like, it went nuts. And then I started posting recipes. People were loving the recipes. And then I woke up one day and Instagram had completely deleted my account because I was a threat to the community.
Oh, here we go.
Classic.
Yeah.
Even though like Pornhub has a verified account on Instagram, whatever, that's
Honestly.
fine. Anyway, so then I was like, okay, well, fuck, like that's heavy. So then as a joke, my girlfriends were like, you should just like start an OnlyFans and like put it on OnlyFans, put like the B-roll, like all the uncensored stuff on OnlyFans. And we were all like laughing about it. And then one day I had a dinner party and got a little bit pissed, and we were like, fuck it, let's do it. So I made OnlyFans and sold. I was like, if Instagram's going to delete me and I wasn't even making money off that, like I may as well just try it on OnlyFans. And that went really successful. But then I was like, I actually really did, like the purpose of my food page was to share my recipes and what I love to do. So I made another account, still the same name, but I don't post any nudity on there because I was like, it's not worth it. So Naked Hungry then evolved into being booked for like mainly women's events. Some being topless, like, you know, clothing optional vibes. Some others just normal events. And then recently I got asked to guest chef at a Melbourne cafe, which was really special.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite dish that you cook if you're trying to impress someone?
Oh, I get asked all the time, like, what's your favorite dish to cook? Or like, what's your favorite cuisine? It changes all the time. A big part of my life is like eating, right? I love food. And so going out to eat and the whole experience, I find that like if I eat a dish and I love it, I will like look at it and taste it and like understand it and be like, okay, I think I know how to make that. And so I'll go home and I'll try and make it, or I'll like put my little spin on it. So I guess it's like whatever I'm like really loving and into. And like, I actually find like the best flexes in the kitchen are like the most simple food that says a lot. Like, for instance, there's this French dish called moules frites, and it's just mussels cooked in white wine, shallots, cream. What else is in there? It's so simple, like garlic, white wine, cream, shallots, garlic, parsley, and then you just serve it with fries. And it's like this white soupy mussels, and you just have it in a bowl, and you just have chips, and you just like scoop it all up, and it's like the taste, like I'm like salivating. It is the tastiest dish ever, and it's just like, and you're using your hands, and it's like very sensual, very visceral. Like that's my favorite.
Oof, I love that so much.
Yeah.
So you obviously have a lot of creative projects on the go. Do you find that one takes like passion over the other? Like, do you find you're kind of like all on Sabby at one point, or like Naked Hungry? Like, how does that?
Yeah, I guess, I'm like, I mean, back to transparency, like, I think it's good to note that a lot of people I know look up to me like, oh my God, and I get it all the time. I just get random DMs being like, girl, like, so inspiring, love what you're doing so much. I'm like, yes, I am doing so much. And I know that like, I catch myself now on the edge of a burnout episode and being like, okay, this is not sustainable, Mon, like you're doing it again. Yeah. For example, this week I'm having the whole week off because I'm like, I was not good before that. Yeah. So priority, it shifts, and I think now I value and I get a lot more out of my businesses when I work intuitively. So like I used to structure my days and my weeks about being like, okay, so this day I have to do content, this day I have to do admin. And then I would like wake up and, you know, in your cycle as a menstruating woman, you might be in a part of your cycle where you're like, I need a rest. So it's like, my content days or my creative days are just not there when I thought or when I was planning to do it. So just being a lot more intuitive and being like, okay, how, like energetically, where am I at today? What do I want to put my energy into? Is it designing a new piece of clothing? Is it I want to just like sit in bed and reply to emails? Like what is going to serve me better, because then I can serve my business better. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah.
So just like going off your intuitive flow.
Yeah. And like, you know, I also have to mention, like, I know that is like a big privilege. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, but like, I don't have time to do that. And like, I'm kind of the same, but it's like, it's interesting. Once you shift your mindset in business, in being like, it's the same with like how you treat your body, like consistency and kindness and like balance. You can apply that to all areas of your life. And now when I have this relationship with both my businesses of being like, yes, it might seem like a privilege, or like I have all this space and time to be like, oh, I'm not going to work today. But it's like, I actually built that, I created that. And it's like, I'm going to be way better for my businesses if I intuitively take a day off and then show up on the days where like I know that I've got the stamina and I've got the energy.
What would you say has been the hardest lesson that you've had to learn in your career?
Oof, in what part of which career? Which
pick
one, babe?
Any.
The hardest lesson, you know what? Humility.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like that.
I reckon humility. I think my complex I have had for a long time around my lack of education, and how I've experienced the world through. I'll just start from the start to give context.
Yeah.
I had a situation happen when I was really young in high school, which meant from year 9 onwards, I got like heavily bullied, and it just got to a point where like I was not coping, and my parents were like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to anymore. So I left school.
Yeah.
And after that, it was just like, I just pushed myself into the real world. My parents were really supportive of like me going into the workforce, and I just started working and I started hustling and all that. But I never had any formal education in anything. And so I was in hospital for a long time, and I just kind of identified with that. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to die behind the coffee machine. Like, had this rhetoric that was my only skill. And so when I started doing all of this stuff and understanding that I actually had capacity and capability to do whatever I wanted, it was really empowering. But where humility came into it is like this complex around not knowing anything and not having education, while like all these people around me had like degrees and PhDs and like fashion, all of these things and all these like on paper skills. I think that I had to make myself feel on that level in order to like, I was almost like cosplaying like this like well-educated person, but deep down I felt so insecure about it. And so I didn't have enough humility to be like, I don't know what that means, like can you teach me? Or like, I actually don't fucking know what I'm doing, but like, can someone help me? And that's been a really beautiful experience, because now I get to learn so much more when you just are open to admitting that you don't know something.
There's so much beauty and vulnerability, I think.
Yes.
People really relate to that.
And it's funny because so my suppliers, my manufacturers in Melbourne, they, at the end of the year, I like dropped them off some wine and just said thank you for the year. And it was just so special. They were like, we have loved every minute of having you as a client. They're like, you are the only person that has been so curious to learn and to grow and understand. You've given us like so much warmth and kindness and time and space. And just hearing that made me realize like it is so important as humans to just like be real and honest and transparent and be like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but like maybe you do, so can you help me? And in that experience, they've been able to like teach me so much in the industry, and I've been able to learn, and they've also been able to experience someone being like, hey, like you guys have skills, teach me, instead of coming and being like, no, you did it wrong, I want it this way, blah, 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 you know, just like creates space.
Yeah, I mean, I even emailed you during this process. I was like, my imposter syndrome's coming up. I was like, what are your tips? And you had some really beautiful advice. So could you share that?
Yeah. I can't really remember exactly what I said to you. What?
Journaling?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I love journaling. I'm a big journaler. Wait, you asked me about imposter syndrome. Oh, yeah, I get this all the time. I'm trying to think about what I said to you.
Intention.
Wait.
Well, what do you do if imposter syndrome is coming up even? How do you work through that?
Well, yeah, fuck, imposter syndrome is so real.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, that complex I used to have about like not having any education, and it's just like, it doesn't matter what we think we're not. It's like, what are we trying to do? What is our intention behind what we're trying to do? What is the outcome? And understanding that like imposter syndrome doesn't even have to really exist, because we're not faking anything if it's something that we really believe in, you know?
Yeah.
And just constantly coming back to like the sole purpose of why you started doing something. And because imposter syndrome is this little person that lives in our head being like, hey, like, you're not good enough to do this, you actually don't have any skill. And that's just like your brain trying to take you to a safe place, which is staying small and not doing something daring or something that you might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so coming back to like listening to that person being like, yeah, I hear you, like I see you, but we don't do that anymore, we don't talk like that anymore. And coming back to your why, like your why in everything is so important. Like, are we doing this? Is a huge thing for me now in my life, is like every single act that I do, is it coming from fear or is it coming from love? And when you act from fear, most of the time the outcome isn't genuine or authentic or how you wanted it, because it came from fear. When it comes from love, you're always going to have a much more beautiful experience and connection with whatever you're doing, any choice. You know, it's like even posting on Instagram, right? Before I post, I'm like, am I posting this out of fear? Like, as in, am I wanting some like validation right now? Am I like, I'm feeling a bit thirsty? I'm like, okay, all right, well, how can I just give that to myself?
Yes.
Or am I posting this out of love? Like, as simple as that. Like anything. Like, am I going, anything, any action you're doing, am I doing that from fear or love? And I think that can come into imposter syndrome of being like, I am doing this is my why, I'm doing it out of love, and it actually doesn't matter what I'm supposed to have on paper in order to do this.
I really like that. What would you say has been the most daring thing where that's kind of come up for you?
Like imposter syndrome?
In your business.
Oh my God. I remember like literally a few months into my business, Melbourne Fashion Week hit me up, this stylist, and was like, hey, we want to put like Sabi on the runway. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, I was like, okay, no, I was like rereading the email, being like, they want Sabi. I was like, oh my God.
Surely,
I was like, what the hell? And it just, like, it was equally exciting, but I could not grasp the concept that, like, that was my brand. That's what they wanted. Like, it was wild.
How did that feel when that actually went ahead, though? You'd been so proud.
It was epic. I like went to the show. I like filmed it. I had like all my like best friends, my family there. It was like a very big moment. And it was just that other like affirming feeling of like, you can do anything. And it was just like right there in front of me. I was like, and that's it, just trusting the process.
So good. Is that like a milestone in your career or any other key highlights that made you super proud?
Honestly, just being where I am. Like, I have this ritual every day when I leave my studio. Before I close the door, I'm like, oh, this is so like exposing. I open the door, like just before I close it, I reopen it and I'm like, I love you, studio. Like, I'll see you tomorrow. And just like the gratitude and the awareness of what I have built and what I have, I'm like, that is just like everything that I keep doing is the milestone. It's like, 14-year-old Mon, if I had told her like, hey babe, just so you know, at 28 you're gonna be here, you're gonna have your studio, you're gonna have your brand, you're gonna have this, she'd be like, slay bitch. Like, I had no idea. So I feel like everything that I'm doing is the milestone.
Yeah, so true. And we talked about that before, I guess, so that's a good point. What would you say is the realest piece of advice you've ever been given?
The realest piece of advice I've ever been given. Oh my God, that is such a good question. Oh, my mum is my mum.
I love how you talk about your mom.
I
Reminds me of my mom
love
as well.
my mum. Oh.
Aww.
You know what? I think I could probably like sit on this and come back with maybe a better answer, but that's not what that's about. My mum, when I was going through a lot of bullying in high school, my mum, I'd come home and cry and whatever. My mum used to always say to me, like a few things. I would come home and cry and tell her what they were saying. And she'd be like, she'd listen, she'd be like, okay. She'd be like, are you that? And I was like, no. And she's like, okay, great. You're not that. She's like, you know you're not that. And I was like, true. And then she'd always say, I know this is really hard, sweetie. She's like, ignore them. If they're saying things to you, like, and she just set up this, like, I still hear her in my mind every time I like feel something negative or someone says something or does something, just that replay of her being like, are you that? No, sweet, you know what you are, be comfortable with that, and that's on them. And just like completely ignoring, like, obviously now as an adult I know when to like step up and communicate and be like, excuse me, you are not making me feel good. But knowing when to just like not feed into like someone's energy when you just know that that's not yours to carry. I think that was like the best piece of advice.
That's so, I love that. And that also reminds me, mine would be from my mum as well. She said to me, and it's so simple, she was like, at the end of the day, Megs, all that matters is you and what you put out in this world. And it's that idea of the whole let them theory as well. Like, people can say whatever they want about you, but literally all that you can control is you and what you put out, what energy you put out into the world. So love that. Thanks, mums.
I know, I'm like, slay mums, thanks.
Well, that just about wraps up everything. I just want to thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
It's been so nice to chat to you. Where can everyone find you and all of your businesses?
Yes, okay, so at mons.monday on Instagram, Sabi, SABI _ the label, and they're both the same on TikTok, and then sabithelabel.com if you want to shop, and Naked Hungry is just at Naked Hungry. Okay. But if you go on Mons Monday, you'll see them all there in my bio. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's the end of that one. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Are You For Real? As a startup podcast, it really does mean so much to have your support. And it would mean the world to me if you enjoyed this episode, if you wanted to share it with any of your friends, and even more so if you wrote me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much and hope you're having a beautiful day. See you next time.